Hello everybody, this is TipTop MTG here today with another Magic the Gathering video. In today's video, we are going to be talking about all the cards that are going to be in Historic Anthology 3. For those of you who don't know, Historic Anthologies are basically a collection of cards that get added into Historic on MTG Arena. Because it's a digital-only format, they can just kind of randomly add cards in there to support certain themes or fix problems. Now, a little while ago, we got these two cards revealed, so these are like some of the bigger cards in the set, Ulamog and Phyrexian Obliterator, so these are both going to be a Historic legal, Historic Brawl legal, basically as if they had been printed in Ixalan. They're going to be legal in Historic, and you'll be able to buy either all of the cards that are featured here today, or with coins or gems, or you can use wild cards on them. And yeah, so why don't we get right into this? So starting off, we have a kind of like a cycle, that being 5 colors of flashback cards. So we have Devil's Play, which deals X damage to any target, and you can flashback it for 2 extra red, basically, compared to the normal cost. Chainer's Edict, which makes target player sacrifice a creature, and you can flashback it for a lot more. Silent Departure, which returns a creature to its owner's hand, and then you can flashback it. Roar of the Worm, which actually is kind of different. It flashback is for a lot less than you actually have to cast it, and you get a 6/6 green worm. And then Momentary Blink, which exiles target creature you control, then like flickers it, and then you can flashback it actually for blue. Now, these are not what they're actually going to look like. Some of them will have different art, but because they've been released in various different ways, because this Historic Anthology actually had them very similar to Spoiler Season, where they come from a lot of different places, and there's actually no one place that I found where you can see all of the cards, and so these are kind of in order of their release. Now, out of these 5 cards, I think Devil's Play and Momentary Blink are probably the most powerful cards here. I think Momentary Blink is just so useful, as it can be used to re-get ETBs, it can be used to protect your creatures, and once it goes to the graveyard, if you're playing a blue deck, you can then do it again. So, very cool. Next, we have another cycle, which is the Hauntings, which are basically a bunch of different shrines, and they're legendary. And it says at the beginning of your upkeep, you gain 2 life for each shrine you control. You draw a card for each shrine you control. An opponent discards a card for each shrine you control. It deals damage equal to the number of shrines you control. And you create a 1/1 colorless spirit for each shrine you control. So these are the only shrines in the game. So basically, if you have all 5 of them on the battlefield, you're going to be gaining 10 life, drawing 5 cards. Your opponent's going to be discarding 5 cards. You're going to be dealing 5 damage to target creature or player, and you're going to be creating 5/1/1. So you're basically just going to win the game if that happens. But they are legendary, so you can't have multiple of the same one out. I think it's definitely interesting. I don't know if they're really needed to be here. Now, I've seen a lot of players talk about how they're kind of underwhelmed with this set, and I definitely agree. It doesn't seem as powerful, and as we'll see, there are some really cool cards, but a lot of them seem like cards you throw in a cube, or that would be good in a draft, not cards that you would see in Historic Constructed, which is more powerful than Standard. What a lot of people are saying is that a lot of these cards, like Silent Departure, wouldn't see play in Standard, so why would they be added to Historic? Either way, we have Gem Palm Incinerator, which is more support for goblins, because they seem to be really pushing that, and just I think every single Historic Anthology had a goblin in it. This is a 3-cost 2/1, and when you cycle it, you can cycle it for 2, and when you cycle it, it deals X damage to target creature, where X is the number of goblins on the battlefield. Now, it is to target creature, which is kind of lame. I think there could have been better goblins to print, but I mean, if you're playing a goblin deck, I might throw that in there. Next, we have Gem Palm Polluter, which is basically the same thing, but target opponent loses a life for each zombie in play, and you're going to cycle it for 2, and it costs 6. So, basically the same thing, but cares about zombies and can hit opponents, so I think it's generally a better card. Then we have Crocin Tusker, which, when you cycle this, you may search your library for a basic land card, reveal that card, and put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library. So, not a lot of support for this now of cool things you could do with it, but it's an interesting card. You can both cycle it, which will let you draw a card, and you can ramp. So, if you're probably I guess you're not ramping, you're putting it into your hand, but you're basically going to gain 2 cards for cycling this, so that's pretty good. Then we have Tectonic Reformation, which says each land in your hand has cycling for red, and you can cycle it. Very powerful card. A lot of the reason obviously cycling is here is because cycling was in Ikoria, which means that this is going to be a card, like if you're running cycling in Historic, you're probably going to be running Tectonic Reformation. That's just the basic facts. And then we have Body Double, which is a 5-cost creature shapeshifter 0/0, and it enters the battlefield as a creature card in a graveyard, which feels like a black effect and not a blue effect. But I guess copying things is a blue thing, but just normally not in the graveyards. Since blue likes to mill, that's pretty cool. You might throw this in a mill deck. You could throw it in, you could have something in your graveyard, something in your opponent's graveyard. So, interesting card again, but it's not the power that we've seen in the past. Like, even with some of the commons, like Soul Warden or Saracen, I guess that was a rare, but and those in the past have been a lot more powerful. So far, we've seen Flashback, Shrines, and Cycling. Now, Cycling obviously has a lot more support because of Ikoria, but Flashback, meh. The Shrines are very, like, self-contained. They're just trying to build a fun deck here. So maybe we're starting to see, like, I feel like this is, so far, everything here, I would love to play in, like, Brawl. Historic Brawl, which I hope that means that maybe this is a hint that maybe we see Historic Brawl as a queue coming up. Yeah, then we have a Cromoz Memorial, so it's a 7-cost legendary artifact, and it says creatures you control have flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, protection from red and black, which is pretty crazy. I mean, if you're playing a token deck, this definitely goes in it. If you're playing a lot of different decks, this might go in it. Again, all of these kind of go towards different things. Again, Mirari's Wake is kind of in that same vein. You're going to want to play this in like a very land-heavy deck, maybe a creature-heavy deck. And this has actually been a mythic, but it is going to be a rare for the set. Then we have Ancient Ziggurat, which I think is one of the better cards. And it says, tap, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, spend this mana only to play creatures. So basically, you can, it's very good if you're playing this in a deck with only creatures. If you're playing like a new Mori deck, which is the companion, that means all your, basically, creatures are, all your non-land permanents are creatures. That might definitely go, well, that will definitely go in that deck. It's an uncommon, so it's definitely interesting. And then, speaking of lands, we have Maze's End, which is an alternate win con that cares all about gates and lets you tutor out gates. Interesting. I might want to build a deck around this. If you guys want to see me make a deck around this, let me know. Then we have a Ratchet Bomb, which I saw a lot of people getting excited for. It's a 2-cost artifact. You can tap to put a charge counter in it, and then you can sacrifice it to destroy each non-land permanent with converted mana cost equal to the number of charge counters on it. So, like, I mean, for 2, this can basically be blow up all tokens. You could, if someone has a lot of 2 cost, you could wait 3 turns and then sacrifice it. So there's definitely some power here. Then if you combine this with Proliferate, you can get it up there pretty high pretty fast. Then we have Tempered Steel. Artifact creatures you control get +2/+2. Not something we're seeing a lot of in Historic, so it's kind of good to see, you know, support for something new that isn't in Historic now. We have Timely Reinforcements. If you have less life than an opponent, you gain 6 life. If you control fewer creatures than an opponent, put 3/1 creatures on the battlefield. So, I mean, paying 3 for 6 life is not that great, but basically this says, hey, if you're behind, go ahead, which are some of the better cards in the game. Not the ones that say, hey, if you're winning, win more. Then we have Enchantress Princess, which is Enchantress's Presence, 3-cost enchantment. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, draw a card. So this definitely goes in the I'm going to enchant my Paradise Druid with a ton of stuff deck. Very powerful card. Swan Song, probably the most powerful, one of the more powerful cards here, in the fact that it lets you counter a target enchantment, instant, or sorcery spell. Its controller creates a 2/2 blue bird. There's lots of different ways that can be used. And then the very last card, and the reason this video is so delayed, is Unburial Rites, which is a 5-cost sorcery. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, and you can flashback it for 4. Okay, so what are my thoughts on all of this? Okay, so let's kind of just go down the line. These are pretty crazy, like, oh, here's like our flashy cards. This is kind of like the Platinum Angels of the group. We have just this flashback cycle, which is just like, oh, there's flashback. I mean, Devil's Play could see maybe some play, and Momentary Blink. Then we have the Hauntings, which I think are going to be a gimmicky little deck and not see much impact on the Historic metagame. Palm Incinerator, I still don't think there's enough Goblin support for a competitive Goblin deck. Same thing about Zombies. The Crocin Tusker really doesn't have a home yet. Tectonic Reformation could see play with cycling in Historic. It works well. Body Double. This one is interesting, but I don't think it would even see play in Standard, really, unless you're milling your opponent, which blue likes to do. So I may see that happening. Cromoz Memorial, really good, kind of expensive, rather just, I'm sure there's something else for 7 that may be a little splashier, although I guess flying for strike, vigilance, trample, haste, and protection from red is pretty flashy. I'm not really sure. Mirari's Wake is an insane card, and I am probably going to build the deck around it. I'm planning on playing more Historic. Ancient Ziggurat is probably, again, one of the better cards. Maze's End is one of the more fun cards. Ratchet Bomb is one of the more talked about cards. Tempered Steel is kind of weird. I don't think there's going to be an artifact-heavy deck, but that's interesting. I mean, it does give them permanently for 3, so this could be the back of an artifact deck, because it's not like a 3-cost spell. This is just permanent artifact creatures you control get +2/+2, which is very, very crazy. I think that if you can build an artifact deck, this definitely goes in it. Timely Reinforcements, good sideboard card, although I could also see people trying to mainboard it, although it could theoretically be a castless, it literally does nothing. Enchantress's Presence, very good, will fit in, like, they've already supported it with, like, Mask of Immolation, and there's been some cards in the past Historic Anthologies that have supported this theme, and so we're seeing it here again. And then these two cards are they're pretty good. I mean, Swan Song, I've heard a lot of people calling the best card, but here's what I want to say. You may have noticed a lot of the time I'm saying a lot of people are saying this is the best card. And that's what I like about the Historic Anthologies. A lot of people have been very disappointed with this one in terms of power level, and I agree it does seem a little less powerful, but I don't think every single Historic Anthology needs to be a powerhouse. I think that adding a bunch of cards, whether they're going to change the metagame or not, can be fun. If players want to go build a Hauntings deck with, Idyllic Tutor, we have all that in Standard right now, so, you could go and actually try and build this deck, and it would be fun. Historic's a more fun format. And so I think that adding a bunch of little support to a bunch of decks, and I mean even making new decks with Hauntings, is kind of interesting. Now the flashback does seem a little weird. I don't know if this hints at maybe flashback coming back soon. The Hauntings, again, kind of weird. Maybe that shows that we're doing something with shrines soon. I don't know. I want to know what you guys think of all this in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed, please hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.